Coming up on Valley View News, the Armenian community protests the military conflict with Azerbaijan. Plus, a Glendale Library serves the community during the pandemic. And comic book stores reopen after months of shutdowns.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Ryan Ketchum.
And I'm Nikiko Burnett in the Digital Media Center.
The Los Angeles Dodgers will play the Tampa Bay Rays in the World Series. They won 3 games in a row to defeat the Atlanta Braves at the National League Championship Series after coming back from a 3-1 deficit. Corey Seager won the series MVP award. He had a .310 batting average, 5 homers, and 9 runs in the 7-game series.
Obviously, it wasn't just me, though. You know, that was a complete team effort right there. 1 through 28 went out there and just absolutely grinded through that series, you know.
Seager says his team deserves more credit. This is the 3rd time in the last 4 seasons the Dodgers won a National League pennant, but they still haven't won a World Series since 1988.
President Trump's arrival in Newport Beach stirred protest and clogged traffic. Trump's fundraiser at Lido Isle in Newport Beach drew people to 3 different protest marches. His supporters shared the streets with the Armenian conflict protesters and Joe Biden's supporters along the Newport Boulevard Bridge. Traffic on the bridge stopped as a presidential motorcade sped by. The first limo had Trump's family in it. The second limo carried the president.
Armenia and Azerbaijan are still involved in heavy fighting over Nagorno-Karabakh. A ceasefire failed after both sides accused each other of violating a new truce. The fighting started on September 27th. Rockets, drones, and heavy artillery are being used in battles, and hundreds of civilians and combatants have been killed. Armenia has made it clear that they don't want war. They say they only want peace. Valley View News' Liliana Ramirez reports on how the Valley's Armenian community is mobilizing.
Thousands of people from the Armenian community and supporters protested to show solidarity with Armenia. They gathered at Pan Pacific Park in Los Angeles. Then they marched to the Turkish consulate in Beverly Hills. Armenia is in a military conflict with Azerbaijan over a small region called Artsakh. Artsakh's population is 99% Armenian.
The United States must stand with Armenia, Artsakh, and the Armenian Americans because this aggression smells of the genocide of a century ago, and we can't let that happen again in this time.
Azerbaijan is allied with Turkey, which encouraged their attack on Artsakh in September. Reports say Azerbaijan is bombing civilians, churches, and schools, killing many civilians.
We're demanding against 2 things. One, against the 2 regimes, Turkey and Azerbaijan, to stop their invasion in Artsakh. The people want peace, and they made it clear to the international community, who has been remaining silent in terms of the violence that have been occurring within the region.
The Armenian community says it wants peace. They want the war against Artsakh to stop, and they also want Artsakh to be recognized as a country. These protesting Armenians say they want to make it clear that they aren't the offenders. One protester says she wants the media to report the truth and not to repeat what Azerbaijan and Turkey are reporting.
They're telling everyone that Armenia is the aggressor, even though the population of Armenia is just 3 million people, when the population of Azerbaijan and Turkey together is like 90 million people, and Armenia can't be the aggressor of that.
The Armenian community is determined to protest every single day until their voices are heard and see change. In Los Angeles, I'm Liliana Ramirez reporting for Valley View News.
President Trump attended a church service in Las Vegas while campaigning in Nevada. He later went to a fundraiser and rally in Carson City.
If you vote for Biden, he will surrender your jobs to China. He will surrender your future to the virus. He's going to lock down. This guy wants to lock down.
Nevada hasn't swung for a Republican presidential candidate since 2004. In 2016, Trump did come close to winning Nevada. Meanwhile, Democrats are outspending Trump and Republicans in the election's closing days. Trump had to scale back spending on TV ads. He's also putting a lot of focus on winning states like North Carolina. Right now, both he and Biden are trying to make progress in so-called swing states in order to secure a path to victory in the Electoral College.
With the election just 2 weeks away, former Vice President Joe Biden campaigned in North Carolina. His drive-in, socially distanced rallies are crucial to victory. The last Democrat to win North Carolina was Barack Obama. Biden told supporters he wants to reform the criminal justice system and fight institutional racism. He also promised black communities to help them build more wealth. Supporters cheered Biden by honking their car horns as he spoke.
I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president.
Biden has been cautious while campaigning during the pandemic. He wears a mask most of the time and follows social distancing rules, unlike President Trump.
The final presidential debate is set to happen this Thursday. It will be moderated by NBC News anchor Kristen Welker. Topics to be covered include the coronavirus, race in America, climate change, and national security. Biden agreed to do this final debate, but he wants President Trump to take a COVID-19 test before debating. The debate takes place at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. The format is the same as the first debate. Both candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each other.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi set a deadline to finish negotiating a new stimulus bill. She says on ABC she wants to make sure it has enough time to pass Congress before the election.
But we're saying to them, we have to freeze the design on some of these things. Are we going with it or not? And what is the language?
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wanted to vote on individual stimulus measures this week. Those measures were all previously blocked by Democrats. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the amounts in the individual measures were too small to help states and local budgets. Pelosi said they nearly had an agreement 2 weeks ago until most of the language supporting testing and contact tracing for the coronavirus was removed.
Late last week, Twitter removed a tweet by Dr. Scott Atlas. He's one of President Trump's COVID-19 advisors. The tweet said that masks didn't help stop the spread of COVID-19. Atlas later tweeted that masks should be used at times when people are in close proximity to others and when close to people who are at high health risks. Later, the Assistant Secretary for Health and Human Services tweeted that masks, in fact, do work to help avoid spreading COVID-19. Twitter replaced Atlas's deleted tweet with a link to their rules and regulations.
Since March, public libraries closed their doors due to the coronavirus pandemic. Reporter Amanda Alvarado explains that the Glendale Library Arts and Culture Systems has new services and virtual programs available to residents.
Libraries remain closed during the COVID-19 pandemic. So David Zierbaugh, a Glendale librarian, said the Glendale Library Arts and Culture System created a new website
That's a little bit more intuitive
with more updated information
about our curbside service, a bunch of FAQs, blog posts.
Melissa Wyke is a Glendale Library staffer. She co-hosts a new virtual program called Teen Gen Talks. She says the virtual program was created to reach out to teens in the Glendale community.
Hello. Glendale high schools, and they kept saying they don't feel part of the community, and we just wanted to somehow incorporate them being part of the community with the library.
I think it's a cool thing to do.
I think that's great. Cynthia Almayer, a Glendale resident, says she supports Teen Gen Talks initiative.
Edited and hosted by the teen library staff.
I think we need a lot of younger people to get the word out on positive things, especially during this time.
I think it's a really good idea to talk to teens about different social issues, try and see what's going on in their lives.
Glendale Library Arts and Culture System currently offers contactless curbside pickup at their central library location. Reporting from the city of Glendale, I'm Amanda Alvarado.
Last week, more protesters gathered in front of the ICE building in Portland, Oregon. The crowd attempted to tie silver balloons to the building's gate. Reportedly, the balloons had stories of refugees written on them. Law enforcement used pepper balls and CS gas to disperse the crowd. Later, the demonstrators returned, and so did law enforcement. This was the 126th day of protests in Portland since the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police.
The Supreme Court will take up cases involving President Trump's border wall and asylum policies. This announcement comes just weeks before the presidential election. The border case involves the administration's attempt to transfer Pentagon funds to the U.S.-Mexico border costs. The asylum policy makes non-Mexican asylum seekers stay in Mexico until immigration proceedings. The Supreme Court allowed both the border wall and asylum policies to stay in effect while the appeals process is completed.
Orange County had no new COVID-19 deaths last week, but county officials say residents still need to follow safety protocols because there still were 196 new cases reported. Los Angeles County had 358 new cases and 13 deaths last week. LA also has 752 people in the hospital. 27% of those people are in the ICU. LA County Public Health says it thinks the numbers are actually lower than reality because of problems with the state's data collection program.
Opening a comic book store is always a risky business adventure. Opening one at the start of the pandemic can be even more risky. Reporter Bryce Wayne goes to Horizon Comics, whose owners did just that.
Local businesses like Horizon Comics in Lancaster are finally seeing customers return during the COVID-19 pandemic.
I've kind of picked back up and started to, had to collect everything that I missed.
One owner, Richard Garay, says they were planning on opening their new store May 1st. That happened to be the day when businesses began to shut down because of COVID-19.
We couldn't have free comic book day, and that was supposed to be our launch for the shop. So none of that happened. And then that same week, Diamond stopped shipping new comic books.
For the first time in 30 years, the largest comic book distributor in the nation, Diamond, shut down for 2 months. Owner Raquel Garay says they had to rely on their backlog.
We made it easier for customers. We have the complete set 1 through 12 or whatever it is so that they could just come in and pick up that set and have something complete to read. And then it spiked their interest in other stories.
Investing because you want to sell them?
Horizon Comics got a lot of help from local artist Brian Lopez. Lopez's art is on most of the walls. The Garays say he helped them with many day-to-day tasks. Lopez says he helped in order to repay them.
All the opportunities that they provided me has made me feel almost indebted to this community that they've established. And so I just wanted to give back in any way I could.
Horizon Comics may have gotten started at a rough time, but the Garays say it's still like living a dream. For Valley View News, I'm Bryce Wayne.
More to come on Valley View News. Research shows the cost of using social media, and a new study indicates people shouldn't stop eating processed meat.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
The San Francisco 49ers defeated the Los Angeles Rams Sunday night. The defending NFC champs dismantled the Rams for their first home victory of the season. The victory for the Niners comes after dropping 2 straight games as they were blown out by the Miami Dolphins the week before by 26 points. Injuries to starters like quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo and tight end George Kittle have led to early season struggles. Garoppolo and Kittle are back, and they connected for 98 yards and a touchdown. Garoppolo had 268 passing yards and 3 touchdowns against LA. The 49ers improved to 3-3, and the Rams are now 4-2.
Mike Emmerich, more famously known as Doc, is retiring from the NHL. He announced the news from his home in Michigan. Doc has called more than 3,000 hockey games, including 22 Stanley Cup finals. His 50-year career comes to an end at age 74. He says retiring as he entered his golden years just seemed to be right. The NBC Sports executive producer says Doc is one of the best to ever put on a headset. Doc was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2018.
Mark Zuckerberg and other tech CEOs will be testifying before Congress. The Senate's Commerce Committee unanimously voted to subpoena Zuckerberg, along with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and Google CEO Sundar Pichai. They agreed to show up voluntarily. The hearing will consider changes to the Communications Decency Act. Part of the act prevents social media platforms from being punished for their users' content. The Justice Department proposed an amendment to remove the protection after Twitter marked one of President Trump's tweets as misleading. The CEOs will be questioned on their content moderation practices, their effect on local journalism, and consumer privacy. The hearing starts October 28th.
Research estimates that an average adult spends about 2 hours a day on social media. Valley View News reporter Timothy Tian explains how using some social platforms can come at a price.
Social media is another way for people to communicate. It helps people keep in touch, but there's also a darker side. Stevie Cho says social media had a negative impact on her mental health.
The fear of missing out on things and then realizing that, other people's lives seem better than yours and that you're really kind of alone in everything.
Social media can be a very addicting environment. Seeing other people's lives while revealing your own life can be very appealing. Cho felt a rush when she got likes, but when her posts didn't get that validation, she'd start questioning her own likability.
I sit there and I'm like, well, maybe this wasn't interesting enough, or maybe I wasn't being funny enough, or, it's not about like, oh, maybe they just didn't see it or like didn't care to just tap on it and give it a like.
But that's not the only thing that hurt her mental health. She says Facebook always showed her other people's success, even if it's sugar-coated. That made her question her own worth.
I went through a pretty bad breakup, and I was upset about it, obviously, and I see my friends getting married. Like, of course, I'm gonna feel bad about myself because I'm gonna sit here and be like, oh, well, is something wrong with me? You're so heavy and you step on me and it hurts.
So Cho decided to quit social media, pretty much entirely. And she says it's made a big change in her life. Cho says now she doesn't worry about what others think of her.
I feel a lot better. I don't feel like I have to broadcast every part of my life. I don't feel like I have to curate my life to be something that it's not, just so that I can get those likes, basically, get people's attention and get people to say like, oh, you're doing such a good job.
Cho says it's good to get away from social media once in a while to focus on what makes you happy. Reporting from Costa Mesa for Valley View News, I'm Timothy Tian.
Nokia will build the first ever cellular network on the moon. NASA chose Nokia to build the lunar 4G network. NASA says the 4G service will be more reliable and cover a longer distance than present radio standards. Nokia's Bell Labs was given $14.1 million to do the project. NASA also gave another $370 million to other companies that will help build new technologies on the moon. They include remote power generation, robotics, and safer landings. The lunar 4G network will be designed to withstand extreme temperatures, radiation, and space's vacuum. The project is expected to be done by 2028.
American Airlines will put their Boeing 737 MAX jets back in service by the end of the year. Flights will be ready for passengers after the Federal Aviation Administration's final approval. The FAA says it will lift the grounding order only after experts are satisfied and when the aircraft meets certification standards. The Boeing 737 MAX has been grounded since March after 2 fatal crashes. 346 passengers died. American Airlines will let their passengers know if they are traveling on one of those once grounded aircrafts.
Meat is considered to be a great source of protein. However, there are risks that come along with eating too much red meat. Reporter Isa Garcia tells us what meat lovers should be cautious of.
A research study in the Annals of Internal Medicine shows that people shouldn't cut down eating unprocessed and processed meat. Ziggy Hernandez is a business owner and meat seller who says in the past 15 years, sales of meat have increased.
An average from 8 to 10%, and in summer we've seen increases up to 20-25% in sales in red meat.
Meat isn't the only way to consume protein. Rosalia Garcia Torres, assistant professor of food and consumer science at CSUN, favors consuming less meat. She says people can get more benefits from plant-based protein,
fiber, and other nutrients. And meat gives you proteins too, but it also increases your risk of cardiovascular disease.
Eating too much meat poses a high risk of heart disease, weight gain, and cancer. Still, some people can resist eating red meat. Ziggy says the most popular meat is carne ranchera because of its irresistible flavor.
It's known as flat meat, and that's perfect for carne asadas and grilling, and it's sold all year long, even in the cold days.
If you are a meat lover, it's important to start incorporating more green foods in your plate. Reporting from Culver City for Valley View News, I'm Isa Garcia.
When we come back, Bolivians elect a new president while Chileans protest against theirs. Also, a Moore teaching zoo registers students interested in learning about its animals. Stay with us. Luis Arce was elected as Bolivia's new president. The election was postponed twice because of the coronavirus pandemic. His election comes after the 2019 election was proved to be rigged in favor of former President Evo Morales, who won. Morales was president of Bolivia from 2006 to 2019. His victory led to mass protests, and he was later forced to resign and sent into exile. Arce says he will be forming a national unity government.
Chileans took to the streets on the one-year anniversary of mass protests against their president. The protesters were calling for a yes vote on the weekend's referendum. The goal is to remove the country's dictatorship-era constitution. The rallies were peaceful during the day, but at night, riots and looting started. A police headquarters along with a church were firebombed. Police say there were about 25,000 protesters in the capital city. Last year, the crowds grew to more than 1 million people. The Interior Minister says he wants Chileans to settle their differences by voting, but anyone who resorts to violence will be punished.
Communities across France have gathered to honor a French teacher who was beheaded. Samuel Paty was murdered after showing his students cartoons of Prophet Muhammad for educational purposes. Paty was trying to teach freedom of speech. The attacker, Abdullah Ah, was shot and killed by the police after the incident. Witnesses say the attacker yelled, "God is greater," in Arabic. Anti-terrorism prosecutor Jean-Francois Ricard says Abdullah went to the school to ask students to point out the teacher.
Paris and several French cities have now implemented a nighttime curfew. The 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew will last at least a month. This is in response to the World Health Organization reporting a 44% rise in European COVID-19 cases over 1 week. France set a country record of 32,000 new cases in a 24-hour span. Other European countries follow with restrictions. England bans indoor meetings between people who don't live together. Northern Ireland and Italy limits pubs and bars.
A teaching zoo in Moore Park enrolls students who are interested in learning about different animals. Valley View News reporter Trevor Edwards shows what it takes to become a zookeeper or animal expert after graduation.
Ranger is a common coyote from Southern California. While his species may be common, his home is not. America's Teaching Zoo is one of the only training zoos in the country. The training program is called Exotic Animal Training Management, or EATM for short. Spencer War, an EATM student in the middle of feeding a primate called a gibbon, talked about what makes this facility different.
We are a teaching zoo, so everyone here is a student, and our main focus is to teach students about training and how to get a career in the animal field, and then go off and hopefully be zookeepers or marine mammal trainers or veterinarians or conservationists, just anything to do with animals.
Founded in 1974, America's Teaching Zoo spans 5 acres and is open to the public. Over 100 different types of species live here across different areas. The alumni aviary includes birds like an emu and bald eagle. A mini horse, potbelly pig, and sheep live in the hoofstock area. The zoo also houses several carnivorous cats, including an ocelot, hyena, and this mountain lion that came from a TV commercial company. This cat's trainer, Darcy Elvelhoek, talked about his story.
They used him for one commercial, and there's not really much use for mountain lions in studio work, so he came here. And what's really cool about him is because he's been here since he was 6 months old, and through training through his whole life, he actually comes out on walks with us.
EDM students learn all aspects of animal care and training, including practicing live stage shows with various animals. Daily feedings are regimented with specific diets for each animal that a student gets assigned to.
Students of the EDM program are required to take care of 4 to 6 animals each semester, just like James and Jasper here behind me. Reporting in Moore Park, this is Trevor Edwards, Valley View News.
AMC Theaters is now renting out movie theaters for private screenings. The chain will allow 20 people per theater. The rates start at $99 for older films. Newer films, along with other amenities such as food and drinks, can be added on for an additional cost. AMC is doing this in hopes to make up for the money lost during the pandemic. The company says they could run out of cash if they do not receive aid by the end of this year.
Liam Neeson's movie Honest Thief takes the top spot at the box office last weekend. But the film only made $3.7 million. On the same weekend last year, the top grossing movie made nearly $37 million. This comes after Regal shut down all of their U.S. theaters, following the delay of the new James Bond film, as well as the weak performance of Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Robert De Niro's The War with Grandpa made the second most with $2.5 million. Tenet came third with $1.6 million.
Rhonda Fleming has died at the age of 97. Born in 1923, Fleming passed away last week in Santa Monica. She was a Hollywood actress appearing in movies dating back to the 1940s. She was called the Queen of Technicolor because of her red hair and sparkling green eyes. She appeared in 4 films with Ronald Reagan dating from 1951 to 1955. Besides acting, Fleming was also a trained singer and appeared on Broadway. She is remembered by her son, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
A Canadian couple tied the knot at the U.S.-Canada border. They wanted to make sure both their families could attend the wedding despite travel restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Lindsay Klaus says she was eager to get married and couldn't wait any longer.
I sat Alex, my husband, down and just said, okay, I don't know if I can wait till next year. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a lot easier to plan when you know what the rules are, and I had this idea in the back of my head. I always called it Plan B.
The couple exchanged their vows at the pier at St. Croix River in New Brunswick on October 10th. More family members were able to witness the wedding across the river in Calais, Maine. The couple followed COVID-19 restrictions by assuring their guests didn't succeed 50 people on the Canadian side and 15 people on the U.S. side. Klaus says it was her dream wedding, even though it was not ideal.
That's all for us at Valley View News. I'm Nikiko Burnett.
And I'm Ryan Ketchum. For stories any time of the day, go to our website, sundial.csun.edu. Thanks for watching.